Let's get started.
Thanks a lot, James. Hello, guys. My name is Sengun from Crisis in the housing procurement team. And we currently find properties and landlords to house our sort of client group that sort of are looking to end their homelessness. So Crisis is a UK charity. This is a new service that they've been doing for around just over a year now, or around about. And we've been doing quite some really good work in and around London. So we work quite well with the with Seventh Bridge Limited, and we continue to create a working sort of relationship between landlords, with Crisis, and with the tenants that we provide. Just bear with me while I get this up. So most of our tenants that we have, they receive universal credit or housing benefit. So that is how they will be paying their rent. Some of them do have jobs as well, part-time, but it just depends on what sort of tenants we tend to come across. But a lot of the time with Crisis, we do have an employment services team that helps out in helping our members or tenants find work and any other support that they need. Crisis are there to support them along the way while they sort of try and get themselves back on their own 2 feet. If they need any sort of qualifications, we're here to help them as well. Any sort of skills, like I said, employment opportunities, they'll have a specific coach that will coach them and guide them in the right way. Like I said, most of them are homeless and receiving universal credit. So everyone has sort of different needs, not just one fixed need. Now, if we go on to the next slide, if possible. So there are different types of homelessness. You know, it all depends on, one's perception of what homelessness is. But like I said, there are all different types of homelessness. So with the first one, there's rough sleepers. There's an estimated 4,700 people sleeping rough in England, United Kingdom, on a single night in the autumn of 2017. So we're taking about 3 years now, and this figure was increased 15% from the previous year. That's quite a jump on the estimated amount. Then you have people that are homeless but in temporary accommodation. Now that is just accommodation that is set out to be maybe like a 1 month or 2 month contract. It's nothing long standing. And what usually happens is those that are rough sleeping, their next step would sort of go into temporary accommodation, whether it's a hostel or a shelter, which isn't very secure and is very, very short term. And about 79,000 households were in temporary accommodation in December 2017. And about 60,500 of these households included children or pregnant women. So it's not just single people that were struggling here, it's families, it's households, it's people that are, creating life or depending on having dependents, And the other types of homelessness, we've got hidden homelessness. And this is where, you wouldn't necessarily think someone is homeless just because of the clothes that they're wearing or how they appear. Behind closed doors, they might be having some serious issues. And the majority of homeless people are from this category, this hidden homelessness category, from statistics and services as they are dealing with the situation informally, such as, staying with family and friends or staying on a friend's sofa or squatting or beds in sheds. And 92% of the public at the time had experienced some sort of hidden homelessness for whatever period of time. Maybe it was like a week or, you know, a month or a year. Someone's experienced that. 92% of people have experienced that in the UK. So if we go into the next slide, the main causes of homelessness, it's a very good question. So there are different types of reasons as to what could cause the main cause of homelessness. We've obviously gone through some there. But as you can see on the screen, you've got benefit and employment. That is one thing that can sort of get people into homelessness, or what impacts homelessness. Health and well-being is another one. Law and right, and housing. If we start off with benefit and employment, in the UK, recent reforms to the benefit system are causing homelessness and making it harder for homeless people to get back on their feet. 88% of homeless people have previously had a job. So because of their situation, that's not the reason why they're defined that way. They're pretty much capable of, you know, living in a home of their own and working 9 to 5. It's just, you know, because of maybe the flaw in the benefit system or losing a job, that creates sort of like a downfall in their life, which sort of ends up for them to being homeless. 39% of homeless have experienced being sanctioned. When we say sanctioned, we mean that because of their situation being homeless, maybe they don't have the facilities or the income to travel to the benefit offices to receive some sort of income. And, you know, if you don't make meetings or are late for these meetings, you can be sanctioned, which is usually a case of money being deducted from what you usually should be getting. So on to the next one with health and well-being, which impacts homelessness. Being homeless has a negative impact on someone's health and makes it difficult to access health services in the UK. In comparison with 37% of the general population, 78% of homeless people report having a physical health condition, whether it's asthma, whether it's, you know, bad eyesight, whether it's skin disease. Being homeless does have an impact on the physical side of things of the body, and also the mental health as well. If we look at law and rights also impacts homeless people. Like I said, our client group. With the UK law, it sets out what people can get help with to deal with homelessness, but it can also exclude people from getting any help at all. The public spending in the UK would fall by about £370 million if only 40,000 people were prevented from experiencing a year in homelessness. So that is a lot of money that the public spending would fall by just to save a small margin of people to not experience being homeless. So basically, it's a large spending for the law and for the righteous part of the UK to sort of try and save everybody. It's basically not affordable. And if we look at housing and how it impacts homelessness, a shortage of homes in the UK and high rents both cause homelessness. You know, if there's not enough homes going around in the UK, or if there is enough homes going around in the UK and the rents are way too high, no one can afford these amounts. These issues also make it difficult for people to move on from homelessness into a stable home. It's a trickle effect. So if there's not enough properties available, people are likely to stay where they are because they're comfortable. And that applies to if the rent is affordable where they are, but they, you know, want to move, but they can't afford to move. It makes it difficult for them to move on and crack on with their life. And to move into somewhere stable. Only 20% of private landlords will let their properties to homeless people. And that is a very, very small percentage there, 20%. And hopefully Crisis are here to change that. Together we can end homelessness. On the next slide, according to the UK tenancy deposit legislation, it usually takes about 30 days from when a tenant moves out to tell or inform them about any damages. So, you know, once a deposit's been protected, the landlord has 30 days to tell the tenant about any damages, or if there's going to be any deductions from their deposit because of any damages that they've done to the room or property that they're renting at the time. That was just a little fun question there for everybody. On the next question I have, what is the minimum energy performance certificate, EPC rating, for renting a residential property in the UK? And the answer is E. So the energy performance certificate shows how efficient a property is in terms of energy in the UK. It is a legal required document, and the document lasts every 10 years. And it is rated from A all the way down to F or G, one of the two. And recently in the UK, I think it was back in April 2017, every property or rented property in the UK needed to be a minimum of E or above. Otherwise, A, the property won't be able to be or allowed to be rented on the rental market, or you would have got a fine from the council or any sort of local authority. And B, if it did fall below the rating E, landlords would need to do the work in order to raise the rating to then be able to rent it out. So again, that's another fact. I think it was there to sort of get rid of any sort of landlords that weren't taking care of good quality properties at a good high standard of renting for tenants. So it was there to sort of improve the quality of rental properties in the UK. Next, we've got this quote stood out to us. Obviously at Crisis, together we want to end homelessness, and 20% of private landlords will let or rent their properties to homeless people. And this stuck out quite a lot for us. And we just wanted to sort of hit home on that. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague, James, to take it over from this slide, and we'll catch up at the end. James.
Thank you, Sengan. Right, so I'm going to just carry on finishing the presentation. I know some people might have questions. I was informed just before we began that this is going to be available on YouTube for like a short period of time. So there's some people watching it on there. And just to let you know, if there has been any questions so far, I'm not ignoring anybody. It's just because I'm doing this on Zoom and I'm sharing my screen at the moment, it's a bit tough. I can't see sort of any questions because it's taken up my whole screen, but bear with me. I'll try and get to them at the end. Right, so yes, like Sengan was saying, about only 20% of private landlords will let their properties to homeless people. So at Crisis, we did sort of our own research, our own digging to find out the reasons for that. And the most common reasons that we found were the benefit not covering the full rent. So what that means is the local housing allowance. So depending on what local authority it is in London, the council will only pay a certain amount of rent to somebody on benefits. Prior to April, that amount was very low, but the amount has recently gone up. So in a lot of cases now, not all cases, of course, but a lot of cases, it does actually cover the full rent. There's a bit of a tricky situation with the benefit cap as well, but that's probably another topic which is a bit too broad to get into right now. Antisocial behaviour, there's perceived, some landlords had, perceived ideas that tenants would more likely commit antisocial behaviour if they were homeless or previously homeless or claiming state benefits. Delayed and unpaid rent because of sort of problems with the benefit system, which is true in some parts. But at Crisis, we've got some staff members that can sort of help take care of that process and, you know, try and resolve any issues that are going on in terms of getting any money sent to landlords. I'll touch on that a bit more in a bit more detail. Damage to property and furnishings as well was another concern, and benefits and rent being paid directly to the tenant and not to the landlord, which was a big worry for some, because if the tenant was then to spend the money on themselves or on other things rather than pay the rent, then it'd be quite difficult for that landlord to get the rent arrears back, which was, you know, understandable. So we've taken all of these, among others, into consideration when we've sort of come up with the housing procurement strategy. What we want to do is find properties, house our members in those properties, match suitable members to the properties, and then during that period, once they're in the tenancy, we want to make sure the tenancy is successful. So we'll try and put everything in place within reason that we're able to, within our capacity, like to make sure that the tenancy does run smoothly. So the housing procurement service, so it's myself, it's Sengan, and it's Nick at Crisis. Nick Segura is the manager, but of course, working with the Chinese Landlord Alliance and Seventh Bridge Limited as well. So what we can do, so we can find tenants. So we've got access to a pool of tenants across our 3 London skylights. So London skylights, they're the crisis centres within London. So there's one in North London, one in South London, and one in Central London. We know the members. Our staff are working one-on-one with people already. There's some people that need more support than others, which is normal. We can help for rent in advance and make sure that rent in advance and security deposit schemes are available to tenants. So in a nutshell, you know, most landlords require a month's rent in advance and a month's deposit, and Crisis would make sure that was all sorted out before a tenant moved into any property. Letting, so what you can do, can manage and accompany viewings. In a nutshell, what we do, so we find a property from a landlord or a housing association or any sort of housing provider. We create an internal property advert and we send that out to the staff within Crisis. So then Crisis will refer members to the housing procurement team, and then we will identify with that staff member people that are suitable, people that are not suitable, and anyone that we think would have a good chance of sustaining a tenancy with our support, we would put forward for viewings. So we can help with viewings, pre-tenancy checks. Some landlords don't have tenancy agreements. They might be new landlords, so we can help with that. They might not be aware of things like gas safety and energy performance, but I'll get onto that a bit further down the line. We can help with set up of utility bills, make sure alternative payment arrangements and direct debits are set up. So what that means is alternative payment arrangements are a thing that Crisis can do with an arrangement with the DWP to make sure that members' benefits goes directly to the landlord. Because like I said in a previous slide, one of the main concerns was that benefits going directly to the tenant often meant there was a high risk to the landlord. So we've tried to counter that by making sure that payments go directly to the landlord, and this all sorted out, either before or immediately after the sign up. We offer a designated point of contact to address any tenancy related matters. So as a landlord, if you housed a tenant and you were getting complaints regarding a tenant that we had housed, we would be happy to step in and try and mediate wherever we can. What we aim to do is provide a hassle-free process to landlords, whether that's not just the letting process, but also finding tenants, sustaining a tenancy, because we don't want people getting evicted any more than landlords do, really. So we'll try and do everything we can to sort of counter that from happening. We offer tenant support. So with the tenants, we have when they come to Crisis, we assess their needs, their strengths and goals. Some people are already in employment, some people are working part-time, some people are not in employment, and in that case, we link them in with our employment team. We provide ongoing support throughout a tenancy. That will be often dependent on the person and how much support they need. Some people don't need much support at all, but that will be discussed on a case-by-case basis. So yeah, our housing coaches provide that support. The designated point of contact, which I mentioned before, would be within the housing procurement team. So it'd likely be myself or Sengan. Anyone could reach out to. So we've got renting ready and money management courses, which we provide to members at Crisis. Make sure people are maximising their income. You know, if they're working, are they claiming tax credits? If they're eligible for it, if they're not working, are they receiving the maximum amount of benefits they can afford or they're entitled to? Employment services I've already mentioned on, support around understanding rights and living up to tenancy responsibilities, making a house a home, identifying and reporting repairs, and then moving out as well. So if a tenant did wish to move out, we would try and assist with finding alternative accommodation. Likewise, if the landlord wanted the tenant to move out or had started the eviction process, we would also help the tenant find alternative accommodation wherever we could. So landlord support, what we can offer, I'll be as quick as I can because I know time's getting on. We can offer rental insurance for the first 12 months to landlords. So Crisis would pay this. It covers rent arrears. So once a member went into rent arrears, it has to be 2 months rent arrears, a claim can be made to retrieve that money. It would also cover, so the rent arrears covers up to 6 months rent arrears, or I think £2,000 a month, whichever is the lesser amount. So for some, but for the majority of people, you know, it would cover pretty much all rent arrears really, unless they're in self-contained accommodation, which was quite expensive. So malicious damage by tenants, it would cover contents insurance, legal expenses cover. So what that means is if a landlord wanted to evict a tenant, it would cover sort of the Section 21 costs, the bailiff costs, any fees associated with that. We can, in terms of the insurance, yes, like I said, also there's void periods. So if a property was to be left void, I think for the first 2 months until we found a tenant, 50% of the rent will be covered. With the insurance, I imagine people have quite a lot of questions, so probably feel free to reach out, and it would be worth. I might not be able to answer that today, but I can always get back to people about that. Yeah, we can come and visit properties, give you rent valuations. So, you know, we work with landlords a lot of the time who might have 4 rooms in a house, and we visit the house and we find out that it's big enough to have 5 rooms, as it fits the requirements for a HMO license. And you know, that way it maximize the landlord's income. We've also advised landlords to convert some what would normally be shared accommodation units into self-contained accommodation units, just in terms of increasing the rental value that the landlord would be able to get. Things like that. Yeah, HMO licenses. So that's another topic which is quite broad, but essentially if a property has more than 5 occupants in it, it would require a mandatory HMO license. Some boroughs in London have got different requirements. So if it's less than 5 people living in a property, that a certain borough might require what's called an additional license or a selective license. But yeah, that's something to be discussed at a later date, which we could help with. Property inspections as well. We can also help with compliance advice. So yeah, like I said before, we advise landlords on what they need for their property to, you know, be fully compliant really, and to satisfy their requirements to the local authority. So yeah, energy performance certificates, HMO licenses, gas safety certificates, PAT testing, and EICRS, electrical installation reports, which are quite a new thing. Well, they're not new, but they're mandatory now in all HMOs. Smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, and then right to rent. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, so Frank asked me to say there's an email address there. If anyone's got any questions, reach out. I'm sure Frank will be in touch with